are two of the most populous countries. Both are home to great and ancient civilizations, as well as important engines for global economic growth. The two neighbors have robust exchanges in film, technology, and education over the years. But how do young people in China and India think about each other? More importantly, how well do we know each other? And at this particularly vulnerable time for humanity, are there things that could provide us common ground and enable us to work together for a better future? So to answer these questions and more, I'm very happy to be joined by 6 very talented young men and women from China and India. So first of all, Shamim, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, definitely. Thank you so much for having me here, and it's great to be in a panel with erudite participants. And so myself, Shamim, I'm originally from northeast of India, and it's my 5th year in China. And by profession, I'm a journalist and author, and I'm working currently with China State Press Agency. And I would say that, yeah, it's been a really great adventure to be in India and, to explore to be in China, sorry, and to explore the country and to taste the food, meet different people, make new friends. And I would definitely like to say that when I came to China, it was by chance. But when I decided to stay in China, it was by choice. And that's definitely because I really made some good friends and, got to travel as well. And it's been a really, really great experience here.
Yes, can't wait to hear more from you. And Amartya?
Oh yeah, I love how Shamim put it, that he came here by chance and stayed here by choice. It's been a similar journey for me. So I'm Amartya, I'm from India as well, and I've been in Beijing for about 3 years or more. And it's been a similar journey where I've been a backpacker, I've been a student of Chinese, and I am now working at Xiaomi. So it's been a very interesting journey, a lot of exploration, a lot of discovery, and I hope this journey can continue and bring more joy.
Yes, interesting. You're working at Xiaomi. So does Xiaomi have a market in India?
Yes, Xiaomi has a large market share in India. India is one of our top markets.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So we have another guest from India, Rajat. Where are you?
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to the show. And I'm also from north of India. I mean, not also, because the other guests are from different parts. So I'm like a neighboring state of India's capital, New Delhi. So I'm kind of like a neighbor to Delhi. And I've been to China in like 2017 and we're pursuing my medicine in China. And though I've never been to Beijing, I've heard about a lot, and I've seen the Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City in the pictures. I would definitely like to go to that place and explore the Beijing streets. Though I've been to China's Sichuan and the nearby, cities like Chengdu and Chongqing. And now that I'm in India, because of the pandemic and there are no flights and there's no student visa for us to get back to China, I really miss the hot pot and the panda.
Yeah, so you're a medical student. That sounds like a very typical major that Indian parents would like their children to choose, right?
Yes, either it's like medicine or engineering.
Okay.
Kind of two things that goes in the minds of families in India. As my mom is also a nurse and my uncle is a neurosurgeon, a doctor, I've been in a family of doctors, so definitely they would expect me to be a doctor in future. Though it is also my own choice and it makes my parents happy, then what can be the best for us?
Great, great. Yeah, and we also have three guests from China. So first of all, Dr. Jiang Tianjiao, he is joining us from Shanghai. So Tianjiao, can you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Tianjiao Jiang from Fudan University. Now I'm assistant professor from Development Institute at Fudan. I also work as assistant director of Center for BRICS Studies at Fudan University. My research focuses on global governance issues. I'm very sorry that I have never been to India. I only know India from books, lectures, and online sources. But I'm very glad to have the chance to join the China-India Youth Talks. Thank you.
Yes, and also we have a girl, Chen Xi. You're also joining us from Shanghai, right?
Yes, Yes, thank you very much for having me here today. So my name is Chen Xi. I'm currently a PhD candidate at East China Normal University in Shanghai. So my research interests lie on the Asia-Pacific studies, exploring the bilateral relationship. Similar to Dr. Jiang, I've never been to India as well, but you know, India has been quite a fascination to me because I really want to know more about about India, about this country. So I've just finished my 4-month yoga training lesson because in my mind, everyone in India could practice very good yoga, and now I can say, you know, numbers from 1 to 10 in Sanskrit. But of course, the priority for me is to study the quadrilateral dialogues in the grander U.S. strategy. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion with all of you here. Thank you very much.
Yes, so everyone in India can practice yoga and everyone in China are good at Kung Fu, right? So also we have Xie Zongxu. Zongxu, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Zhao. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Xie Zongxu from Tsinghua University in Beijing, and now I'm a PhD student majoring in hydraulic engineering and international relations. Currently, I also serve as the president of the Student Association, the Belt and Road Initiative at Tsinghua University. We know that China and India both have large populations and are neighbors since a long period of time. And last year is also the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relationship between those two countries. And during this special period of time of COVID-19, it's very nice to meet you online, but still I myself have some experience to do investigation in Southern Asia before. And today I feel very honorable to attend this online event focusing on the youth perspectives over China and India. So I hope this time we can share and have a lot to learn from each other. Thank you.
Okay, great. Welcome to you all. And for those who are watching us, if you have questions for our guests, you can leave us comments on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Weibo, Douyin, or wherever you're watching us. So the theme of our discussion today is like, how well do we know each other? So let's start with a very simple question. How do Indian and Chinese feel about each other? So Rajat, you're in India. So how do people around you feel about China? Like, are they mostly positive or negative?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about two scenarios. The first scenario is that I'm not in China, I've never been to China, and the second is after that I've been to China and I'm back home. So the first time when I came to China, you know, it was kind of like an alien nation for me. I didn't know anything about it. Most of it we hear from the movies of Changlong, Jackie Chan, or you know, the Kung Fu Panda, or they would talk about Shanghai, Hong Kong, and some 3 or 4 big cities. You know, you could never believe that I didn't even know there's a city called as Chengdu in China. I didn't even know there is a place called as Sichuan before I went there. So it was kind of like a new experience for me to explore the place, you know. And when my parents sent me to China, they thought that, okay, so you're going to go to China. Oh, you are, because our family is vegetarian, so we don't really have, though I've never seen or touched meat in my life before when I came to China. And in India, I always used to eat vegetarian stuff. So they told me that you have to be careful, you don't know, because they always, all the time they eat meat, and you might not find the clothes fitting to you because the Chinese people are short in height. They have these stereotypes in their mind. So like when I came to China, it broke my stereotypes. They are lovely people, ready for friendship with foreigners, and especially the college students were super cool with me, and they always came to me and they just wanted to learn about India or about Indian culture. And especially now that I have left China, I'm not in China for like 2 years, so I really miss the food over there. You know, earlier I didn't even know what's gonna be there, and now I miss all kind of meat that I had in China, because here at home I just can't eat vegetables and stuff. I cannot have an easy access to meat. So that's what I think about Chinese people. They're lovely people. Before that I didn't know, and now that it broke my stereotype, and now I think Chinese are in a way quite similar to us Indians, I think. The family relationships, the relationships of moms and dad and the children, you know, the mom is gonna scold you if you don't study. It happens in India, it happens in China. And I think there are a lot of similarities,
Yeah.
so I don't think we're different in any way.
Right. So Shamim, what makes you to come to China and become a journalist?
Well, as I said before that, it was not really a conscious choice to come to China. It just happened by chance, and that time, like, one thing led to another, and I came to China. And well, when I first came to, and what makes me come to China as a journalist is like a really interesting question, because when you work as a journalist in China, though I work in the desk, I don't work as a reporter. So there are a lot of the things which you have learned before, you need to unlearn, and then again you have to learn afresh here. So that's really interesting take from here, and you get to know a lot of people, like, because the China perspective that we usually get is more from a Western media, right?
Right.
Because maybe the language difference or whatever you call it. Because of that, the perspective that we get is more Western-centered. But when I came to China, that I got to see things firsthand. It was more like a local experience, and that made me like say, "Wow, that's really a great experience here," and I could, like, thrive on this experience and try to explore more. And that's what makes being a journalist in China really exciting. And yeah, so.
Yeah, so Amartya, you're working for Xiaomi. Actually, I know that the tech sector in India is also developing very fast, and also many Indian young people, they want to work in American companies, right? But you choose to work in a Chinese company.
Yeah, that's an interesting journey. Actually, one of the reasons that I chose to come to China is because everyone was rushing towards the West. And for me, the journey was that, like, as I was saying, that actually in China first I was just a backpacker. And how did I end up here? It was, well, I used to be in the Netherlands, and I was a researcher. I was a policy researcher. And what I realized then is that China, understanding China is very important in all spheres. It's important for policy, it's important for business, and it's important for technology. And that's why I decided, and a lot of people talk about China, but I feel they don't understand the culture, they don't speak a word of Chinese, and they've never been to China, but they are so-called experts on China. So I felt, okay, let me just have a journey through China and see what it's like. So I traveled through China for a few months just with a backpack, and it was fantastic. And what I realized in technology is that the advances in Chinese technology have been massive. It's grown leaps over the last few years or decades, and in some ways it resembles a future that is closer to India. India cannot so easily just replicate or blindly replicate Western models. So what I felt was that, okay, if I spend a few years in China, this is basically like doing a PhD in technology for me. That is learning things, it's learning things that other peers of mine perhaps do not know yet about, because they're all rushing towards USA, all rushing towards the West. But there's a lot happening here. And by myself, I myself also see that a lot of very prominent Indian founders, you will see them visiting China quite frequently to learn more about the tech sector here, about the startups here, about the cutting edge advances here. So yeah, that's my journey.
So what is your plan like after you finish your work here? Are you going back to India, or do you want to stay here?
That's a wonderful question. I don't know yet. I don't know yet because that's way down the line.
Okay.
But what I would like to do, one of the things that is my dream is bridging these two countries in terms of education and technology, because I think these are spheres which have a lot of potential win-win scenarios, because we have such large populations and we have so many students really striving to get the best possible education, but we have limited resources. So this is a massive problem as well as a massive opportunity. So as of now, my dream would still be to perhaps go back to India or stay here, but work on a solution to this problem.
Okay. So let's get some voices from the Chinese side. Actually, all of our guests, including me, we have never been to India, so we're all curious about this country. And so let me start with this very simple one. Can each of you use one word to describe, like, when you first think of India, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? So Tianjiao, what about you?
Yes, our guest Chen Xi just mentioned that she likes playing yoga. So in fact, this is the word come to my mind. I think that yoga it's a quite good symbol of Indian culture, and it's really popular across the world. And most of my friends love playing yoga. So I think this is what I can think about India.
Okay, so do people in India love yoga?
Oh, well, I would say it's a stereotype, just like as you said at the beginning, that people in India do yoga and people in China know Kung Fu. But it's not really true. Of course, yoga is really popular. Recently, not recently, a few years back, the World Yoga Day was announced. So after that, there is a massive reach of yoga. There's more awareness. People are taking it up more. But not one would definitely be, adept at practicing yoga.
Okay, I see. So Chen Xi, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. Apart from yoga, the long-standing interaction between China and India comes to my mind. So the word I would like to say is Buddhism. It was brought by the Buddhists from India to China in the later part of the Han Dynasty, and it took nearly a century's time to get assimilated into the Chinese culture. And Chinese people are actually, I think, very familiar with India, because even in our literature, Journey to the West, we have Buddhist Xuanzang embark on a legendary pilgrimage towards the West region. So by saying the West, we're actually referring to the Indian subcontinent. So I think there are a lot of similarities shared between China and India, and both countries are very active members of the non-alignment movement, and also the largest developing countries in the world. So for me, I'm really looking forward to a trip there.
So, Zhongxu, what is your answer to that?
This question is quite interesting. I think the word for me is movie. Actually, my favorite Indian film is Three Idiots, and I myself is a huge fan of Amir Khan. I think the film is a criticism of love and friendship. I think that there are many fantastic movies in India, and also I think that the elements shown in many Indian films not only influence the life of its people, but also become the unique film identity of India, and can further spread Indian culture to the world through films.
Okay, so are you satisfied with that? Do you think these three things can well represent India?
Of course, no three things can represent any single place, and especially a place like India with its diversity, because we have diversity in terms of languages, ethnicities, in religion, any possible thing that you can think of, there's a lot of diversity. But I think what they've mentioned, there are very interesting points, and it's also interesting to see how our peers from China commonly see India. And one of the things that Zhongshu last mentioned, I think, is also very nice. It's one of the most positive developments I've seen over the last years, is how Indian movies are getting so popular in China.
Yes.
Because I really think this is helping bridge these two countries. For some reason, Amir Khan is doing great. In India, Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan are still quite big, quite popular. But in China, somehow Amir Khan's movies are the most resonant with the public. I wonder why. Actually, I would like to also throw this question to our Chinese friends, that why do they feel that in particular these kind of movies which have a theme of, I think especially Amir Khan's movies which have themes of social issues, these tend to be very resonant with Chinese audiences.
Yeah, so Zhongshu, why do you think movies like this are so popular in China? And why do you like Amir Khan?
I think that in general, I think there are many things in common between Chinese and Indian cultures. As I just mentioned before, like both of us have a very long history, and under these two different civilizations, I think film is just one of the medias, but not the only one to show the warmness and the beautifulness of its culture. So I think that's like through films we can just through this media and spread its culture to the world through these movies.
Yes, and actually, just as you said, we both have some stereotypes of each other, and maybe the media have played a role in this, but that is why we're sitting here today, to have exchanges like this. So actually, our three Chinese guests have some questions for Indian guests, so let's hear from them. So Tianjiao, what do you want to learn most about India?
Yeah, I'm still worried about the COVID situation in India, because I heard from the news that the number is still very high. So I want to ask, because Rajat is in India now, so how is the COVID situation there? And how long do you need to recover from COVID if you get infected? And how much is the expense? So I'm quite curious about that.
So Rajat, can you tell us a little bit about the situation now in India?
Yeah, the situation right now in India is quite complicated because, India is not a small country. And if you ask me, what's the situation in India? I can only tell you India that I see through my eyes around me, because I've never, I'm also like one of those Chinese who've never been to Great Wall of China. I'm also like those Chinese who've never been to Shanghai. So India is also quite big for me, that I've never been to many places in India. So I can only tell you what's happening around me. So as I can see, the place here, my city is quite small with not much to travel. So I think it's quite okay, but big cities are problematic, like many South Indian states like Kerala, and big cities like Mumbai and New Delhi are under severe attack of this COVID wave, and I'm not sure if the third wave is coming soon or not. But people are like the places where there's no lockdown, like my place. People are not actually following the COVID protocols. Many of them don't wear masks now, and they're like they're acting like as if the COVID was never been there. So they're like there's nothing. They're super relaxed. And people are not afraid now. I don't know why. And because when I talk with my Chinese friends in China, they always tell me that even if, like I've been talking to this girl from Henan, and she told me that there was this severe flood in there, and then this Delta virus in China, and many cities were in lockdown, and the whole population of the cities, they were tested with the nucleic acid test. I think it's kind of a miraculous thing, because you don't see that thing in here. Because I can take my example. In April, I got infected by COVID-19, and I got infected. I got symptoms. I have this fever.
Oh, but you're recovered, right?
To get a checkup for myself.
Yeah, but
yes, I recovered. I'm quite healthy now, as you can see from my face.
Yeah, good to hear that. Yes, I think there are some cultural differences between China and India, also when it comes to how we deal with the pandemic, right? So, Chen Xi, what is...
Yes, Zhang Laoshi also asked me...
Yes?
Zhang Laoshi also asked me that how much time I took to recover, and what was the cost or something like that. So actually, for people who are as normal as me, especially in the young age, I'm just 22 years old. So it's like, it's not very problematic. For people who are old, old enough, and who have some comorbidities like heart disease or diabetes or some other diseases, they're quite prone to, COVID-19. And we know it's not even COVID-19, any disease which seeks your lack of immunity can affect you. So COVID-19 is another example. So if you have a lack of immunity, your body is not strong enough, it's gonna eat you up from inside. And if you're strong enough, like for example for me, when I got infected, I didn't even go to hospital. I just took a rest at home, and I had my all vitamins, and I had a high protein diet. And especially the vitamin C is very important in building up your immunity. As I know, this is my major in medicine, and my mom is also, she's working in hospital, and we knew many things, so I could actually take care of myself, and I didn't need any oxygen supply or anything like that, and I was okay in like rest of 2 weeks, so it didn't cost me any money. And most of the friends that I know, they also took rest at their home, and they, as you see in China, when you have some problem like that, you suggest people to drink a lot of hot water. I think that also worked for me. I had a lot of hot water, and a lot of fruits and vegetables, and I was okay, good to go.
Okay, I think that's another similarity between
Thank you so
China,
much, Reggie.
China and India. We both drink hot water.
Yeah,
Right?
drink hot waters.
Yeah. So Chen Xi, what do you mostly want to know about India?
Well, as a female representative from the Chinese side, I would like to ask our Indian guests. So, how are they Indian women pursuing their self-development for their personal growth?
So Shamim, can you tell us
Yeah,
about
sure.
that?
Well, because I'm a male here, so perhaps I'm not very appropriate to answer the question, but still I would try my best. Well, at the beginning we were discussing about the fact that India is very diverse, right? And there was a quote in Time magazine long back. It said that India is a continent masquerading as a country. So it just gives an idea how diverse India is. After every kilometer, language, culture, everything changes. So in terms of that, the actual scenario of women empowerment is also varies from cities, which province, which state we are talking about, and how it is. But so I grew up in a city. I grew up in the northeastern capital, in the northeastern part of India. So where I grew up, of course, like my mom, she works, like, and all my relatives who are female, like they have seen them working, right? But yeah, if you talk about overall population, yes, there is like loopholes and which needs to be fixed. Right, there are a lot of things we need to change about women empowerment and like education as well, particularly. But I think, yeah, slowly and slowly we are progressing. There will be like equal representation in terms of work. But yeah, there are a lot yet to be done, and I'm sure like eventually we will be there.
Yes, yes. So Zongxu, what do you mostly want to know about India?
So actually, I think like youth is the future of the country, and I'm curious about how can Indian youth combine their personal development with India's development right now. Thank you.
So Amartya, how do Indian youth feel about their country and their future?
Oh, this is a very emotional question because I think there's ups and downs right now in India. I think the good thing on the positive side is that I really believe that this new generation of Indian youth, we really believe in ourselves and we have really big aspirations. We are not afraid to have really big dreams and we are not afraid to go after them. This is, I think, really important because maybe you see a slight difference from past generations where you're kind of happy to just settle down, maybe find a safe route, a safe option and just go with that. As compared to that, I think over the last few years, Indian youth has been more brave, more willing to have aspirations, more willing to chase their dreams. However, I think it's also important to mention the realities, which is that we do have difficulties in generating employment. We do have difficulties in connecting our education system with the labor system. I think these are areas which we really need to work hard on so that India's youth can go on to really achieve these dreams that they're having.
But it seems to me that actually both China and India are developing countries and they are developing very fast. So I feel that the young generation feel like they're all not optimistic about their future and the country's future, and they feel that they can live a better life than their parents.
That's very true. That's very true because I think the way India is growing, I think there's really, this is a place with great opportunity for anyone who wants to have remarkable growth. This is a fantastic place, not just for Indians actually. I think even for people from other places, this is a great place to go to grow personally. I hope that we can deal with all these challenges well enough so that we can make sure that our new hundreds of millions of young people can go on and reach their dreams and also help India to reach its dreams.
So let's get some voices from the Chinese side. So Chen Xi, what about the young generation in China, like people of your age? What do you want to do after you graduate?
It depends what kind of subjects or you are taking. For example, for me, because I am studying the international relations as well as the language studies, so I would like to pursue a job in university as a university teacher. So for my colleagues or my classmates, they would like to become the employees in the international companies as well. So it kind of varied because of the different studies they are taking in university, but also the experience they have. So for students who have travel experiences to other countries, they prefer to work in an internationalized environment. For example, they like transnational companies or something like that. But for other people who are being with students and children, they would like to go to kindergartens or middle schools or even universities. So I think that's the situation here in China.
So Shamim, what are the most popular job choices for Indians after they graduate?
Sure. I would just like to chime in what Amartya said just now. If I talk about my parents' generation, right? For them, it was like a tunnel vision that after they graduate from go to school, graduate from university, if you're good in studies, go to become a doctor or an engineer. Yes, and if you're bad in studies, or if you're a little bit moderate in studies, maybe you'll go pursue humanities or become a professor or something like that, right? But now the things are changing, right? Because youngsters, they not only dream, but they dream big. And in terms of opportunities, there are different opportunities. For instance, journalism. In my family, most people are either doctors or lawyers. Even my dad worked for the government, right? He studied science and then he worked for the government now. But for me, I chose journalism. So when I chose journalism, there was a little pushback because I was the first one in my generation, the eldest one. So there was a little pushback, but with my sister, when she's choosing a particular career, I'm sure she will have that opportunity and no one will question her, why you're doing that or why you're doing something else. So that opportunity is there now. So that's how it's changing. And another thing is that because India, we have a young population and there's immense energy. And what we need to do is channelize this energy in the right direction. And in terms of opportunities, there are a lot of new opportunities coming up. Because, for instance, when I was at the university, because I did my graduation from India before I moved to England, so there we had architecture, design, and apart from the mainstream profession, there are other professions coming up. For instance, as I said, architecture, design, interior designing, and various other courses. And as Amartya said, he also has a diverse career because he mentioned that he was in Netherlands as a researcher, and from there he is now in the tech sector. So you can see people are leaving footprints in different sectors. So
yeah, it's good to know.
If I may add to that, because you see things now happening which were unheard of previously, which are so we have the IITs, which are India's premier institutes. They are India's Tsinghuas and Bedas.
Okay.
So people who are going to these institutes and graduating from these institutes with a premier degree in engineering are then dropping this to become a YouTube influencer.
Oh, that's cool.
They're starting their own podcast. They are becoming photographers. So you see that their career paths are opening up far more. And I think technology is a big factor in this because there are suddenly new options on the table which were just not there before.
Right. It's good to know that they have more choices. Both young people in China and India, they have more choices nowadays. And Tianjiao, so from your perspective, do you feel that the young generation in China, they are not only more optimistic about their future, but they tend to have a stronger sense of national pride or national identity? And what do you think are the reasons?
I think it is also part of the whole, the globalization. You can see that especially in recent years, we can have this kind of feeling that we have witnessed a anti-globalization movement across the world. More and more people in different countries, they will get trapped by globalization. They feel that globalization is robbing their jobs, and they are not satisfied with the government economic performance. So we can feel this kind of sentiment across the world. So there are more and more people, especially young people, and they chat on the internet and they feel pessimistic about their future. They want jobs and they need to live by themselves, but they just cannot have the same work as their parents had before. So we need to find some way. We need to create some new development pattern to cope with this kind of disadvantagement. That's my thinking.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, Rajat, I want to ask you about this, since Tianjiao just now mentioned globalization. How do young people in India nowadays think about globalization? Like, do they feel that Indians should embrace globalization, that it can benefit from globalization, or do they feel that maybe you need some policies to protect local governments and local industries?
Actually, youngsters these days, as our Indian guests have discussed, because we have seen a lot of change in society and everyone's changing and there's a lot of options and everyone has a smartphone nowadays and there's this internet and everyone has access to YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. They're watching this world carefully and they're seeing what's happening, you know. So a lot of times you would see on internet there are like a lot of discussions about a lot of things and a lot of topics. So actually, you know, people, for me, like as a youngster in India, I think the world is quite small. As you can see, I'm here in India in some city, you guys are in somewhere else in studio, someone is in Beijing, someone is in Shanghai, and we are all talking on some topics. So for me as a youngster, I think the world, because of this internet and globalization, has become very small. And I think many of the youngsters would like to extend their hand or their help to other countries who don't have access to good facilities or would like to become friends with other, you know, they download some apps or they use the internet to talk with strangers from different countries and ask them about what's happening there. Especially me as a person, I'm quite fascinated by the fact that I have this access and opportunity that I can actually get to know more about different kind of lives of different people living in different part of Earth. So this is the way the globalization is working now in India for youth. And of course there are certain laws and there are certain drawbacks to this thing, because most of these things are controlled by higher authorities, because, you know, we are just commoners and we really don't have any control over government or the political parties. The only thing that we can do is change our leaders by election or something, or giving the votes. That's the least that we can do, and that's the most I think that we can do, or talk about something online, or make some groups, or talk about some changes to change our society and how the government or local parties work. But there should be certain rules to protect them as well, and protect the local market as well, because, you know, with this globalization, everyone's looking for cheap and better. So, you know, if you look for cheap and better, they would just choose some other options, probably because, you know, the localites, they might not have any facilities, and what the things that they come up with are quite expensive as compared to what is imported from outside the other countries. So there should be certain laws to protect these localites and the handicrafts and the local small industries which are actually budding and which really have a good potential to become big in future.
Okay, so Zongxu, what about the young generation in China? How do they feel about globalization, and do they want to choose foreign brands, or would they go for like local brands?
Okay, so actually I have a very similar feeling as Roger just mentioned, that, you know, that as China develops, Chinese youth are growing in much more confidence somehow, and both China and India are very big developing countries, and those Chinese youth right now they have much enthusiasm about their future, and also they tend to have a positive attitude towards their career development. And also I think many young people in China nowadays, according to this framework of globalization, they want to contribute themselves to a better world and to a better Chinese society for a moderately prosperous China in the future.
Okay, so Shamim, how do you think we should draw a line between patriotism and nationalism? Because I hear that the Indians are boycotting Chinese products and Chinese apps.
Right.
I want to know, is that really the case?
Well, yes and no. There is certain section, and those are basically hyped by the nationalistic sentiments. Like, first to begin with, you asked me how to differentiate between nationalism and patriotism, right? I'll give you a simple example. We all have our parents, and we love our mom and dad, right? Now, when you're walking by the street, somebody asks you, hey, suppose you're walking with your mom, and someone asks you, do you love your mom? I'll say, yeah, of course I love my mom. And the person will ask me, again, that show how you love your mom. Now, this is where the question comes. How can you show your love? It's a feeling which is inside. And this is what patriotism is, right? Patriotism, like, it's in your heart, and you love, and you think your country is really nice, your country is growing, and your country is, like, progressing. But when you think that only your country is the best, other country are not doing well, or you start hating other country, or to show your patriotic belief, you have to hate other country. When that kind of feeling creeps in, that's when it's dangerous, and that's what I would define as nationalism. So yes, I would say they're same sides, different sides of the same coin. So it's definitely important to draw a line. It's okay to love your country. We all love our country because that gives a sense of identity, because we are born there. At the same time, we should also respect the feelings of other countries, or at least learn from other countries, right? And coming back to boycott, I'm totally against boycotting any product, because just now our elite panelists were talking about globalization, right?
Yes.
So for globalization, I think the world is becoming into a village, right? It's a global village. So if you shun globalization completely, then you cannot prosper, because economically you'll suffer. At the same time, yeah, it's important to safeguard the local markets. And I would like to give an example, and I'm sure like the world can learn from it, the dual circulation paradigm of China, right? So how the domestic economy and the foreign market is reinforcing each other. This is a very good thing from which the world can learn. So I'm sure like such policies, if other countries also embrace globalization, at the same time take care to safeguard their own markets, then definitely both of them can simultaneously sustain.
Yes, you made a very good point there. So, Chen-Xi, I'd like to get your view on this, because I think we all remember that back in 2012, when Chinese took to the streets to protest against Japan's claim over the Jiaoyu Islands, they even smashed Japanese cars and vandalized the Japanese shops. And also then in 2017, people were also boycotting South Korean products because over their deployment of THAAD. But I feel that this time Chinese people are like acting in a more rational manner. Why do you think are the reasons?
Well, I think in a globalized world today, the young people could feel even clearer that they have a national identity compared with people from like other countries. And for the things you just mentioned, I think it's like the way I would like to put it would be like we are showing the love towards our country, towards our motherland, but whether it should be in negative way or the positive way deserves our discussion. I think there is not a very clear line or a way for us to say which one is wrong or which one is not is right. And anything with the ism will be very easily to be manipulated by certain people for their purpose to gain their political interests. And that's the thing. When we would like to say, like, describe the former U.S. President Donald Trump, he was overusing this term, but the real purpose for him was to gaining for his own interests and not for the whole nation. So it's very natural that we say we love our country, we love our motherland, but at the same time we have to pay attention to cooperate and collaborate with other foreign friends to seek the like mutual development and also the collaboration and cooperation among different countries at the same time. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think that is a very good point there. So, Ken Jiao, I'd like to get your thought on this. Like, do you feel that it is the government policies that is affecting people's sentiment or people's feelings about another country? Or do you think it is vice versa, that maybe sometimes the nationalistic sentiment may in return affect the policy making of the government?
Yeah, I think the government must play some roles in these issues, but I don't think we can blame the government for all of this issue. I still believe that it is we all need patriotism for sure, but just remember that to be humble and keep learning from each other all the time. I think that's more important. And don't think we are the best. Don't even think we are better. That's my suggestion to this problem.
Yes, keep learning from each other. That is very important. So, Tianjiao, what do you think we can learn from India?
Well, I just want to add that, you know, I think that Indian friends are really good at making public speech. And they all make very eloquent speech. So when I study in the US, I really hope that I could have Indian classmates in my research group so they can do all of the presentation by themselves. I mean, that's a really an advantage, I mean, for like team projects. So I mean, for sure that I really appreciate that if I can have such kind of Indian friends in my research group, and I really admire that Indian friends. So I think that they do very good presentation and do such kind of public speech. I think most Chinese young people should learn from their Indian partners.
Okay, so Amartya, why are Indians good at public speaking? Do you take courses like this?
I think this is a stereotype again, because I mean, I can talk about myself. I'm a very shy person. I feel quite shy to speak in public, so it's not true that all Indians are very good at public speaking. Maybe it's a stereotype, maybe it's also just some of the classmates you have had must be very outgoing people, very extroverted and very confident people. I think not necessarily everyone has that kind of natural confidence. And I would also like to add one point about the previous discussion we were having about patriotism and nationalism, because I was listening to the thoughts of Indian friends and Chinese friends, and actually I feel the reason we are discussing this is because there is a challenge in this area. There is a challenge on both sides. This is why we are discussing this thing, right? So we can't deny that there is a challenge of whether you choose to call it nationalistic sentiment or you choose to give it another tag. That's a separate question, but there is a challenge regarding this. However, I feel this is actually, okay, there's two parts to this. One side are the government to government relations, and in this case, you know, these are two neighboring countries, so it's natural to sometimes have those tensions.
Yes.
It's very natural. It will happen, and there will never be a 100% peaceful, amazing honeymoon period. There will be tensions. The second point is that, however, having said this, people-to-people relations is a different area which I really think could significantly improve between India and China. Because right now you have a lot of people just imagining what people in that country look like, what they do, how they live their lives, and I think this is a very big problem. This is what turns sometimes government to government level tensions into maybe some personal grouse also that people feel towards another country, because you haven't had enough interaction with people from there. So you're not able to think of them as humans, as people, as understand their culture, understand the mental models. I think this is a significant challenge that it's like the elephant in the room that we should address. That yes, this is a problem. Yes, this is an area where both China and India have done very poorly. Because I think, and the media also, so CRI and also all the other media organizations, I think we can work towards discussions like this one. I think this is a great initiative where you're putting together people from both sides, you're asking us questions, you're letting us hear each other, you're letting us talk to each other, and we're learning more about each other with open minds, right? We are not coming here and saying, hey, this is my point of view, this is what I think of you, and having this kind of a vibe. We are having an open discussion. We are putting together people and we are trying to connect. So thank you for doing this, and I really wish that we can have more these kind of discussions and we can have more forums where we are bringing together people from both countries. I think this is the true challenge. This is not really about nationalism or patriotism, is my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
Like, I definitely agree with you how he said that people-to-people exchange and the soft power need to be nurtured, right? Because I can give you an example from my personal life. Like when I was in the UK and I was writing my dissertation, a part of my dissertation also dealt with the Chinese media. And until then, I had never visited China, and maybe I had just a few Chinese friends. And when I read the books or articles that has been published, I pictured China completely in a different way. Like I thought that everywhere, every nook and corner, there'll be policemen standing there. The moment you say something critical, you'll be put inside the jail. But when that's the knowledge, or that's the picture I made by reading the books or articles that was published mainly the Western-centered media, right? But when I came to China, I just realized like it was like a completely flip, right? What I saw here is completely different than what I learned from books or from newspapers. And this is where the exchange comes in, right? People-to-people exchange. And as one of our panelists were mentioning, that the relation dates back to 2,000 years or even more than that. But in the last century, from being next-door neighbors, we have become next-door strangers, unfortunately. But I'm sure, like as he already said, that this sort of forums and more, and also media, needs to play a really, really great role in nurturing these relations and to make sure that we don't have misunderstanding between each other.
Yes, and I think Rajat did a really good job there for making all those videos, those vlogs. So Rajat, can you tell us more about that? Why did you start to do that?
Okay, so I'm going to tell it from the starting. So when I was in China in my college, there was, as we know that we don't really have access to a lot of platforms from other countries like YouTube and stuff like that. So I couldn't find a permanent source of entertainment for me, and I also wanted to learn about local culture. So I come up with this app called as Douyin, and I used to watch it a lot, and I used to swipe through videos, and it was quite interactive and quite easy to know and read Chinese. And as a matter of fact, I started to make videos on that. I felt like, okay, it's a good way to pass my time, and I feel I enjoy myself. And suddenly there was this video, I dubbed an Indian song, and I had this beautiful Indian dress, and I was looking like a perfect Indian from a Bollywood movie. And I just dubbed this song, and it got really popular those days, and it got like many likes and many comments. And that's how I started my journey. And then I got to know about other platforms. And through that platform, I saw the comments of people talking about stereotypes of India. When they would see me, I'm not quite black or I'm not quite dark skin colored, they would just ask me about my caste. They would just ask me, are you a Brahmin? Are you a Poloman? And they would ask me, are you a rich man from India? Because you're not dark skin colored. I was like totally shocked. I mean, do you mean to say that all the dark skin colored Indians are poor? And it was quite shocking for me to get to know about these stereotypes. Just to break many stereotypes like that, I decided to make videos like, okay, I can also use spoon or forks to eat food. I don't always put my hand in the rice and curry, and I don't eat curry always. So I made those videos to beat some stereotypes and tell some facts. I also introduced some states and some sceneries from India, and now I'm working on vlogs from my family. I share everything what I do at home, how my mom goes to work and how my younger brother goes to school and what he studies. I share my life so that people can actually relate, and in comments I see, and I get to see many messages. People tell me, you changed our experience, you showed us a very different India, what we used to see before. Thank you so much for making videos like this. So that's my aim now, to connect more people through my videos, to let them know about festivals of India, to let them know how Indians live in their family and how a relationship works. and also introduce about the local food and the culture, and also answer them in a way, because I also have a Q&A sessions in between, and I ask them, okay, please, all of my fans, if you have any questions for me, just write them down, and I make a video telling them how Indian people have their names, why my name is like that, the caste system, the women empowerment, the social problems, and how this whole system works, and what do I eat, how many times I eat, and what do I do, and how I'm studying, and what I'm planning for future. I share everything with them, so that at least, from my perspective, from my eyes, I let a whole lot of Chinese, because you know, the platforms like Bilibili, many young people use Bilibili, and for the matter of fact, platforms like Shigua Video, like the middle-aged or old people use, and Douyin is like mixed people from different age groups. So my videos target all the groups, and I try to answer them a lot of questions and a lot of their problems. What do they feel about my videos? And I let them see the whole view, whole picture through my eyes. So at least, that, I cannot actually have a stage that I can go and stand on a stage and they're going to tell me, okay, you talk to the whole Chinese population. I can only work on a specific portion of the Chinese population, but as my fans are increasing, and it almost touched 200K subscribers recently, I'm quite happy for that, and 160K on other apps. So there are a lot of people who are following me and trying to learn more about Indian culture.
Yes, I love your videos, and please keep the good work. It is a very good way for us to learn about India. How can we find you? What is your ID?
How can you find me? Okay, yeah. So my Chinese name, if many people might find it funny, because when I came to China and I asked my Chinese teacher to just give me a Chinese name, because there's this process that every international student go to the Chinese teachers and they would give you a Chinese name. So most of the times they give you a Chinese name from your Indian name. So for example, our guest here, Amartya, so probably they would name him Amartya. Or maybe there's someone as Mary, they would call her Mali, or there's Mike, they would call him Mike. So it works in that way. But I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be different from my Indian name. So I told them, okay, I know Jackie Chan. Okay, I want something that my name is going to have Chan in between. So I wanted to specific Chan in that. And my teacher told me, how about Chang? I was like, okay, I'm Chang from now. He said, okay, let's make it a Changjiang. And he told me that Changjiang is a long river in China, and Changjiang and Huanghe, they both hand in hand. So he told me, okay, how about we give you the Changjiang? So he gave me the name Changjiang, and the matter of fact that I'm from India. So my ID is Indu Xiaoge Changjiang.
Okay, let's follow Indu Xiaoge Changjiang on Bilibili, right? Okay, so let's move on to our next question. That is, how can Indians and Chinese from each other? So, Zongxu, I look to you. What do you think we can learn from India?
So actually, I think that firstly, we are neighbors since so long, as you just mentioned, and both Chinese and Indian civilizations have influenced each other under the development of each other's culture and also the world culture. And China and India are of the BRICS countries at the same time. So I think we can, especially for youth, we can have many aspects to collaborate, and I think we can learn from each other in the field of, for example, how to develop a large country in the current environment, and also like the vaccine cooperation on its research. And I think according to different measures, maybe we can contribute ourselves in different areas.
Yes. So, Tia, what do you think Indians can learn from Chinese?
Oh, I think there's a lot of synergies on both sides. I think in terms of not just learn, but I think also in terms of being allies. I think on the global stage, actually, I know it's not very feasible, it's very difficult, but I must say that on some issues, for example, such as climate change, it would really help if we can sit down as allies. And this is one area which I think there's a synergy between these two countries. Another obvious one is technology, and I don't think this part needs a stimulus at all. This is already happening. This is happening in full flow, where Indian founders, I heard one of the prominent Indian founders in one of his chats in China. He says that when I come to China, it's like looking at the future 5 years later, what's going to happen in the Indian internet industry.
Yeah.
So I think this is a fantastic area for learning and for synergy, where you know, you have had certain models that are very successful in China and have had massive growth. It is a different market. We have people speaking different languages and 100 different challenges that are different from China. But tech is definitely something where I think India can learn from China, and it's already happening.
Yes, but as we know that during the China-US trade war, a lot of US companies just moved their supply chains out of China to some Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, and also, of course, India benefited from that. But it looks now the situation is changing because of the pandemic. Some of the companies are pivoting back to China. So do you feel that China and India, from this perspective, they are competitors in terms of the manufacturing industry?
I think because yeah, this is both economics and politics. So I think that in these spheres, it's a very challenging balance to maintain, because very naturally, I feel that China and India tend to see each other as competitors more often than allies. Which is also due to the stage of development that we're at, and also about India's aspirations on the global stage. So you're right, there is a feeling of being competitors at some times, and let's be honest, this is not going to go away. This is going to stay, and there is going to remain this kind of fierce competition. For this, I say let's embrace it, and at a global stage, let's look at the benefit of global citizens, not just selfishly for our nations. I think this kind of competition is good at the global level for global consumers in particular, because you're probably going to get the best out of this. Despite this competition, I think that there are still these areas of synergy. Still in the value chains, we can think of how we can integrate better, because you cannot just totally cut out a country out of your value chain. It has cost for yourself as well, usually. So I think the mindset is what needs to be the most important factor here, where we think of how can we both win.
Yes. Yes. So what do you think China and India can learn from each other?
Well, yeah, when he was talking, I just remembered a quote by one of the famous authors. He once said that India should borrow Confucius for 1 century, and China should get Buddhism again to it. Yes. So from there, it shows that it's not India and China, it's India with China. So I think together they can definitely maintain a synergy and growth. And yeah, there are a lot of things that India can actually learn from China. And after spending like almost 5 years now, I just realized, for instance, in global warming, tackling global warming, China is making really, really good progress. For instance, how they cut on the pollution, right? Pollution, like in 2012, when we imagined Beijing, it was like a gas chamber, and now how things have changed. And also China's goal is to be carbon neutral by 2060, which I'm sure they will be achieving it very soon. And another one is, I think, from economic perspective, ease of doing business. How China is, increasing the ease of doing business, creating the free trade zones, and at the same time, safeguarding the domestic economy. As I already mentioned, the dual circulation paradigm. This is something India can really learn, right? Because if I hear it from my entrepreneurial friends that if they want to establish a business in India, like involving paperwork, tax, and all, it's a little bit complicated. So so I think the government can make it simple and learn from China. Of course, there is a fear that India is a developing economy, so it might affect the domestic market. But you can always take two things together hand in hand. So that's one thing India can learn. And of course, as he mentioned, technology. Like when I look here, I just get amazed and appalled all the time. Like you look, few years back, the autonomous vehicles, the cars, driverless cars, those were just a mere thought. But now it's a reality. Beijing has already rolled out, and I'm sure it will be like available for the public in full-fledged way. So that's something India can learn from China. And apart from that, Another thing is, I would say, the medical system, because India, this pandemic actually showed how the public health system in India was in crisis, because people were scrambling for oxygen. Of course, even the private hospitals were also overwhelmed when there were the second wave and the cases were surging. But in China, you can see how the Fangchang, the makeshift hospitals, yes, it was built very easily when the outbreak befell Wuhan. And I think that's something India can learn, how to manage the public health system, how to make it stronger, so that a pandemic of this scale, if it happens again, they're already prepared. So I think these are the things India can definitely learn from China.
Yes. So Chen Xi, what do you think China and India can learn from each other?
Yeah, those two countries could summarize very good experiences to improve its economy and develop its industry. So for India, we know that in recent years, India has achieved very great achievement in its high-tech industry as well as the IT industry. And for the pharmaceutical sectors of India, it fulfills over 50% of the needs of the global vaccines as well. And when speaking of the movie industry, we always think of the Bollywood and also the famous actors, as mentioned before. And for China, actually, we had a very good experience as well. Following AU's continuous endeavor, we have completed our goal of poverty alleviation. And also in the fight of the pandemic, we see that China has provided a very successful and very effective way of fighting the virus. So this is the place where we can cooperate and seek collaboration in the future. And I do think that the success of a 1.3 billion country and another 1.4 billion countries fight against the pandemic will contribute greatly to the fight of the world towards this virus. And I think this is particularly the place that we should think of and discuss in order to seek the cooperation between these two countries in the future. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And
I'd also like to chime in there, because from what Shamim and Chen Xi mentioned, I think these are very relevant points, and we are talking about what all we could learn. In fact, I think that policymakers in India are watching how China manages the pandemic. They have been watching and they are observing very carefully, and I think they are already very actively learning from this. It is true that our political systems and structures are very different, so you cannot totally just replicate it. You cannot just say, China did this, it worked, therefore I will do this. It doesn't work that way, because you have differences between the central government, state government, maybe there are different political parties in power, tensions, so we can't blindly replicate. But I strongly believe, by observing what India's response to the pandemic, that in our own way, we have been watching and learning, and from the successes wherever China has controlled the pandemic very successfully, I believe our policymakers are watching this and they are learning from this as well.
No, I would also like to tell that to the policymakers, if you want to frame policy about India-China bilateral ties, or if you call yourself experts about China, please learn the language and then come and localize your knowledge. Otherwise, if you just depend on a third-person account to learn about China and then you frame policy, that's not going to work. Because even now, like I have spent almost 5 years now, and when people ask me what do you know about China, I don't even know perhaps 0.1% about China, because such a vast country, long civilization, like such long history, you need to devote some time, you need to learn the language, and then maybe you need to travel and then talk to local people, and then you need to frame policies. So my request to the policymakers in India, if you're watching, is that learn the language, localize your knowledge, and then frame policies.
yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Shamim. Thank you, Amartya. Thank you, Rajat, Chen Xi, Jiang Tianjiao, as well as Zong Xu. I remember that back in 1924, when the Indian poet Tagore made his first trip to China, he made a speech at Tsinghua University that inspired a generation of Chinese young scholars and students. And he said, there are no longer walls to hide us, so we have at length prove our worth to the whole world, and not merely to admiring groups of our own people. We must justify our own existence. We must show of our own civilization, that which is universal. So with that, I think we're wrapping up our discussion today. Thank you all for joining us, and hopefully you have all enjoyed our discussion. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.